As Carl Jung once put it, the sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light of meaning in the darkness of mere being. When we look up to figures like Jung, Freud, Da Vinci, Einstein or Shakespeare, it's easy to feel that our own lives fall short in comparison. Their legacies shine so brightly and their lives were so meaningful. How could our own lives possibly stack up? According to Jung, the purpose of life has nothing to do with what you achieve. It has to do with who you are and how you act. It's about self-discovery and authenticity. Jung viewed the psyche as the full scope of our being, encompassing both our conscious self and our unconscious depths. At the core of our consciousness lies the ego, yet the ego sees only a fraction of who we are. Deep within our unconscious lies our shadow, or dark side, often hidden, but essential to uncover if we wish to find true purpose. This is because the purpose of your life is not something objective or universal. It's something unique to you. Carl Jung was a Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst who ended up founding his own school of psychology known as Analytical Psychology. His philosophy is often referred to as Jungian Philosophy. He's also published multiple books, most notably, The Psychology of the Unconscious, Man and His Symbols, The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious. In this video, we'll talk about the steps you need to take so that your dark side can reveal your life's purpose according to the philosophy of Carl Jung. 1. Get to know your darkness. Jung tells us, your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes. Before you can fully understand your life's purpose, you must understand yourself, and that means confronting the parts of yourself that are hidden. Most of us think we know ourselves pretty well. You might think you're familiar with your traits, strengths, weaknesses, and desires, so you might be tempted to dive straight into finding your life's purpose. But knowing yourself, deeply, goes beyond surface traits and requires what Jung called self-realization. This journey involves exploring your shadow, the side of you that holds suppressed desires, repressed emotions, and traits you'd rather ignore. For instance, your shadow might contain feelings of laziness, envy, or anger as well as hobbies or interests that you're ashamed of or wish you'd outgrown. Because the shadow resides in the unconscious, you're often unaware of what's in it. These traits have been repressed and ignored for so long that they no longer surface in your thoughts. Instead, you tend to over-identify with your persona, the role you unconsciously play to be liked or appreciated by others. This persona acts like a mask you wear when interacting with the world. Reintroducing yourself to your shadow requires genuine effort. Engaging in shadow work or getting to know your dark side, as Jung called it, involves regularly stepping back and reflecting on your behavior, thoughts, and feelings in daily life. This could be done through journaling or meditation. Ask yourself, why did I act the way I did? Did it feel authentic? Why or why not? What was my initial instinct in a given situation? How would I feel if the roles were reversed? It's about interrogating yourself as if you were questioning someone else. Jung emphasized that getting to know your shadow doesn't mean identifying with it. You don't have to define yourself by the traits you usually hide. For example, if your shadow houses anger, you don't need to see yourself as an angry person. Instead, simply acknowledge these traits exist, recognize, and accept that they're a part of you. Another way your hidden shadow traits often surface is through judgment of others. The traits or behaviors you despise in others are often the ones you fear in yourself. This is called projection. So, whenever you find yourself angry at or irritated by someone else's behavior, take a moment to ask, do I ever exhibit this tendency? Could this be a shadow trait of mine? According to Jung, those who harshly judge selfishness often repress their own selfish thoughts, and those intolerant of impatience in others may be battling their own impatient tendencies. By taking time each day to sit down, journal, and ask yourself these probing questions, you begin to bring the unconscious into consciousness, truly getting to know yourself. By regularly confronting our shadow, we reveal more of who we are, and can live in alignment with our deeper selves. 2. Work on yourself. Jung once said, I don't aspire to be a good man. I aspire to be a whole man. Self-realization isn't always comfortable. It can be a hard and humbling process. In fact, you might feel temporarily worse about yourself after your self-realization because you can no longer ignore all your bad sides. Jung acknowledged that figuring out who you truly are is an intensely painful and frightening process. Yet, confronting your shadow is essential to personal growth. If you ignore parts of yourself, they won't disappear. They may emerge when you're least prepared. Repressing shadow traits often gives them more power. They fester deep inside you, and then, when you're tired, stressed, emotional, or at a breaking point, they suddenly burst out of you. For instance, those who repress anger can find themselves exploding unexpectedly. Instead of pushing these traits down, Jung advocates transforming them. Anger, for example, is only bad if it's excessive or unwarranted. But when someone genuinely hurts you, anger can actually help you advocate for yourself. Laziness can get you well-needed rest. Impatience can make you more active. Envy can be a motivator. In other words, you have to find ways to integrate everything you find in your shadow into your personality instead of ignoring it. Your shadow isn't here to punish you. Self-integration means accepting these parts and using them constructively. As you grow, you'll become more balanced and true to yourself, making it easier to see what truly matters in your life. So the question you should ask yourself is, when is it right to act on an emotion and when is it better not to? When should I lean into my mask and persona and when do I not have to? By thinking about your emotions in this nuanced sense, rather than thinking of them as bad or good, you will improve your life and well-being tremendously. You will be more balanced, harmonious, and authentic. Once you have figured out how to use your shadow, you have figured out who you truly are, and thus, it will become much easier to figure out what you truly want and need from life. 3. Take action. Jung emphasized that you are what you do, not what you say you'll do. Knowing yourself and working on self-integration is essential, but to make life meaningful, you must also take concrete steps. The purpose of life cannot be found in thoughts, but in practice. Don't just react to life's events, take charge of your own story. When you identify what matters to you, actively pursue it. This means that you shouldn't live your life reactively. Don't only react to what happens to you, but also initiate something in your life. Instead of waiting for people to befriend you, go out of your way to make friends. Instead of waiting for that promotion, come up with a plan and pursue it. And instead of waiting for your life to achieve the meaning you want it to, make your life meaningful with your actions. Currently, most of us do live reactively, even those who actively seek out their shadow and improve themselves. Working on yourself is a great first action one can take. But it's not enough to truly start taking action in other areas of life either. Okay, so how do you start living actively? This is simple. By challenging yourself. Frequently ask yourself questions like, what do I believe in? What spiritual or religious beliefs? What moral principles? What values? How do I act on a daily basis? What do I want to do this year and the next 5 years? How do I want to contribute to the world? What do I expect from others? You could journal about these questions or meditate on them. The answers are clear clues as to what kind of actions to take. You might, for example, want to become a published author but don't take many steps to achieve that goal. You just wait for inspiration to strike, for your agenda to clear up, and eventually for the book to write itself. So what would someone who wants to become an author have to change? An aspiring author that actually takes action would write on a frequent, scheduled basis, whether they feel like it or not. When they get stuck, they'd actively seek out advice or exercises to help them move along. They would finish a story, if not thanks to motivation, then due to discipline. And then they'd proactively reach out to people in the publishing industry. Of course, many people don't derive meaning from career goals. Instead, their personal ideas about their lives might be a little more abstract. You might want to positively influence new generations, for instance. This could be done in many ways, by becoming a parent, a teacher, starting a charity for youth, or becoming a youth counselor. It's then on you to decide in what way you want to achieve this goal and what actions that requires. Whenever you ask yourself questions about your morals and beliefs, you'll then have to decide what way you can work towards them and what actions you might need to take. It's quite possible to survive when living reactively, but it's not possible to find meaning in a reactive life. Meaning requires action. 4. Embrace fear. Where your fear is, there is your task, Jung reminded us. One of the main reasons people live reactively is not laziness and not a lack of motivation. Most of the time, the avoidance of action results from fear. Action requires risk, which can be scary. When you have an idea for a book, you have to risk being disappointed by your own writing in order to get it down on paper. Once you've written a book, you have to be ready for many rejections if you want to get it published. Every single action you can take can result in something negative. But take meaningful action. Courage is essential. True bravery doesn't come from the absence of fear. Fear shouldn't be avoided. When ignored, it merely retreats into your shadow, often taking an even stronger hold over your life. Instead, it needs to be acknowledged. When you're faced with a necessary action that feels daunting, pause and ask yourself why. Are you afraid? What exactly are you afraid of? Identify what could go wrong and how you would handle those possibilities. Preparation is one of the most effective ways to contain fear, but don't let it become rumination or anxiety. Focus only on likely scenarios, rather than letting your mind spiral into extreme possibilities. For instance, if you want to publish a book, prepare yourself for the likelihood of rejections or possibly struggling to find an agent. But also allow room for the possibility of success. Be ready for positive outcomes too. However, resist the urge to fixate on improbable concerns, like someone stealing your book idea or others mocking it. Such thoughts are unlikely and ultimately unhelpful. By breaking down your fears and addressing them through realistic preparation, you've already alleviated much of their hold. The feeling of fear may not fully disappear, but once you've done what you can, the next step is to dive in. Courage means confronting your fears, not eliminating them. Every person who has achieved something remarkable has done so not by avoiding what scares them, but by facing it. Bravery doesn't mean the absence of fear but the courage to act in spite of it. Jung's philosophy suggests that the areas in life that scare us the most are often the very paths that will bring us the deepest meaning. 5. Accept the bad. In one of his most profound insights, Jung noted, even a happy life cannot be without a measure of darkness, and the word happy would lose its meaning if it were not balanced by sadness. At this point, you know yourself, you're continuously growing, taking action, and embracing risk. But does this guarantee a perfect life? No life is without its imperfections. In fact, some of the world's most influential figures have endured profound hardship. These are often the people who take the most significant risks, refuse to be defeated by adversity, and keep moving forward no matter what. Learning to accept the inevitable setbacks and disappointments in life is essential to finding meaning and purpose. Meaning itself depends on it. A life that is only joy and triumph lacks depth. Joy holds value because we know sadness. Victory feels sweet only because defeat was possible. Light and darkness, success and failure, they give one another definition. Lastly, take time to appreciate the good in your life. Whatever you've accomplished, no matter how small it may seem, be proud of it. Whatever goes well, be grateful for it. And remember, your life has purpose as long as you're striving to be the best version of yourself. If you enjoyed this reflection, subscribe for more insights on life and philosophy to keep you inspired on your journey. Thank you so much for watching.